Good evening. Welcome to this candidate forum for the Hastings-on-Hudson Democratic primary for mayor. My name is Susan Maggiato, and I'm the president of the Rivertowns League of Women Voters. We're pleased to be partnering tonight with Disability Rights New York, which is providing both American Sign Language interpretation and live closed captioning. To see the closed captions, you can click the Show Captions button at the bottom of your screen. This evening, you will have the opportunity to listen to the candidates' views on issues of importance to the Hastings community so that you can make an informed decision when you vote on June 24th or during early voting. But first, a word about the League of Women Voters. I'm sure you know the League is a voter service organization, and indeed we are. That has been our mission since our founding in 1920 after women got the right to vote. But we are also an advocacy group. We lobby our legislators on public policy issues on the local, state, and national level. So in that sense, we are political, but we are staunchly nonpartisan. That means that as a league, we never support or oppose candidates or political parties. And membership in the league is open to anyone 16 years of age or older. A word about our recording policy that both the candidates have agreed to. Only the entities authorized by the league may broadcast or live stream or record this forum. Only licensed media, which includes TV, radio, and newspapers, are entitled by FCC regulations to air portions of the recording. Anyone else who broadcasts or streams it must do so in its entirety. This is to ensure that the content of the forum will not be manipulated in any way to create false or misleading impressions of either of the candidates. The forum is being recorded, and it will be available for later viewing on the League's YouTube channel, LWV Rivertowns. There is no audience participation tonight. The questions the candidates will be answering were submitted by members of the Hastings community, either when they registered for the webinar or by email to the League. A committee of League members who are Hastings residents reviewed the questions. Our role was to organize them and in some cases combine questions on a similar subject to include as many as possible. Our timekeeper tonight is Ashley Quigg. She is a member of our Rivertowns League and a resident of Dobbs Ferry. Our moderator is Rachel Kravitz-Boyle, and in keeping with League policy, she is not a voter in the village. She is a resident of Ardsley and a member of the Rivertowns League. She is an attorney with the City of Yonkers. And with that, I will turn the meeting over to the moderator.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for having me moderate tonight. Along with myself, we have the two candidates vying for the Democratic nomination for mayor, Tom Drake and Morgen Fleisig. Each candidate will have the opportunity to make a 2-minute opening statement, and then we'll have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. At the end, they will be allowed to make a 1.5-minute closing statement. In addition, each candidate is allowed 2 30-second rebuttals. Our timekeeper, Ashley, will indicate to the candidates when 30 seconds of their time remains and when their time is up. Candidates can finish the sentence they're speaking when the stop sign comes on, but then must stop. The only restrictions on candidate responses and statements is respect and civility. The order of opening statements was drawn by lot before the meeting. The closing statements will be in the reverse order. Candidates will answer questions in a rotating order. The questions were not provided to the candidates in advance. During the debate, the forum, no campaign materials are allowed to be visible, and candidates must remain visible on the screen at all times. The candidates have agreed to these ground rules, and with that, we'll begin with an opening statement from Tom Drake.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for spending your night with us, with Morgan and I. I've spent my entire working life in government, from working and beginning as a lifeguard here in Hastings to a firefighter, EMT, serving as a Navy hospital corpsman, police officer, sergeant, criminal investigator. And now I've been serving as one of your village trustees since 2021. I've served in positions where collaboration is vital, sometimes even life-saving. I've worked with groups or individuals in more than just crime solving, but even more as a problem solver. I'm fundamentally a collaborator, and I view the primary role of mayor of any city or village in our state as one to represent and advocate for the village and bring people together in collaboration. I've helped solve crimes all throughout this county, but I've done a lot more than just that. With the district attorney's office, I represent people in discussions with Social Security and HUD to find housing for them when they've found themselves in a position of homelessness or desperation. I intervened in a person's life who was normally law-abiding, but had lost all their money and began to turn to a life of crime. I helped turn that person's life around by meeting with county, state, and federal partners, and eventually placed the person in federal housing, long-term federal housing in government throughout because of my contacts in government. I'm proud of my service to the United States Navy and to our country, and especially its leadership training that I've received. I'm proud of my service as a police officer and the leadership training and experience that I gained even at the highest levels of government that I've collaborated with. My strong work ethic has garnered me promotions, medals, recognition all throughout my government experience. I've represented union negotiations with Westchester County, including with now County Executive Ken Jenkins and our current U.S. Congressman George Latimer, and can call
Thank
them
you,
both
Mr.
good
Drake.
friends.
Morgen Fleisig.
Good evening. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event and thank all of you for tuning in, for spending your valuable time with us this evening. In case you're wondering why you're here, I'm Morgan Fleisig, and I'm running to be your next mayor of Hastings-on-Hudson in the Democratic primary on June 24th. National politics may be a circus right now, but real change starts here at home. Local government might not make headlines, but it shapes our daily lives, from keeping our kids safe walking to school, to reliable 911 service when we need it most, to land use regulations that help make Hastings the community that it is. That's why I'm in this. Nearly a decade ago, I joined the Waterfront Rezoning Committee, not because I wanted to run for office, but because, as an architect and planner, I saw a problem and rolled up my sleeves to help. 6 years ago, I ran for trustee to keep that momentum going. And since then, I've worked on stormwater repairs, rebuilding bridges, safer streets, and making sure our parks are green and functional. Being mayor isn't simply a ceremonial role, it's about hands-on leadership, and I'm ready for it. I spent the formative years of my childhood in a farm town upstate where I learned how to build things and dream big. My parents taught me about the world, Martin Luther King, Vietnam, and even woke me up to watch Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. I wanted to be an astronaut, but I settled for architect. That curiosity about how people live, work, and build communities led my wife Margie and me to Hastings, a welcoming place with beauty and brains that felt like home immediately, and we've spent years since giving back. My leadership style is collaborative, practical, and persistent. I listen, build consensus, and get things done. As mayor, I'll focus on three priorities: infrastructure and climate resilience. We're facing 21st century storms with 19th century pipes, and it's time to rebuild these systems and think outside of the box with resilient solutions that integrate our parks and green spaces. Two, disciplined budgeting and tax relief. I've helped craft smart budgets and pushed for improvements that grow our tax base, and I'll continue to do so.
Thank you, Morgan. Okay, just a reminder, we're going to move to the questions now, and they have 90 seconds to answer. Morgan, we're going to start with you. What do you see as the role and responsibilities of the mayor?
The mayor is the leader on policy. So there is a village manager also who deals with the implementation side of the village, but the village mayor is much more like like the House Majority Leader, uh, organizing policy and then crafting legislation to move goals forward. But it's also the mayor needs to work closely and collaboratively with the village manager and all the department heads to make sure that the policies and laws are being implemented as we envisioned.
For you all. Have you finished answering?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Tom, same question. And at any time, if anyone needs me to repeat the question, please let me know.
As I started to say in my opening statement, I think the mayor is the collaborator of the village. It's the person who's going to bring people to the table, even including the waterfront, where we have several property owners at the waterfront. And I think the job of the mayor in that is to watch out for the best interests of our village, but also to keep people talking and keep people at the table. And like I'd said, I feel like that's the strength that I have. I have the ability to pull people together, even when we disagree about things, and get us to the table and sit down and have a discussion. And my job is to advocate for this village and for what's the best, for what is best for the village, our residents, and the future of Hastings. And I feel like I'm well positioned in the position of mayor, and even currently as one of your elected village trustees. I think I have to fiercely advocate for this village on every front, including with our partners in other government around us, in our town, in our county, our state, and in with our federal government partners. And I feel like I'm a well-suited person for this position because of all the relations I have and because of my deep, strong commitment to this village over my entire lifetime.
Thank you. Tom, the next question you'll answer first. What are your 3 top priorities for Hastings?
My 3 top priorities, my number 1 priority has and has always been infrastructure. I feel like we as a village have forgotten about the basics and how to just fix things in this village. And we focus so much on other issues that we've forgotten about paving our roads and making sure our sidewalks are in good working order and our curbs are working properly and steering water to where they need to go and keeping us all safe. I feel like our infrastructure has been neglected over time, and it's time for us to focus back on our village. I feel like there's been divisiveness in our community over the last several years, and then our most recent presidential election definitely didn't help that, just in our own community and nationwide. And I also feel like I'd like to just regain the trust of our village residents, because I feel like some of that's been lost over time in our village government. And I feel like it's very important for me to be able to go to block parties like I have, meet with housing association groups, meet with groups that represent entire streets that have an interest in our village government. And I think it's time to rebuild those relationships and get back into the community like I've been doing over the last month and a half. And that's it.
Thank you, Tom. Morgan?
Rachel, thank you for that question. I think on number 1, Tom and I are aligned. I'm very committed to future-focused infrastructure planning, building more resilient systems for our stormwater and our streets and our waterfront. But I think we also need to rethink the way that we do it. I mean, right now, the entire stormwater system is designed to evacuate the water as quickly from the village, and we need to start planning for not just torrential rain, but also intermittent droughts. And we need to start thinking about ways to conserve our water and treat these storms as a precious resource. The second priority would be smarter investment in our parks and our nature. And I would do that by both preserving their beauty, but also enhancing them with more cultural spaces, recreational facilities for pickleball, skate parks, but also public art. I'd like to use the parks as a way to attract, both with the public art and with recreational facilities, a way to attract more visitors to the village. And then finally, most importantly, improving affordability. So seniors, young people, teachers, police and firemen, local workers who want to stay here can live here and thrive here and help grow our tax base in ways that continue to honor the character of Hastings.
Thank you, Morgan. Morgan, you will begin with the next question. Please describe specific projects for which you were responsible during your years as a trustee. Please offer details about your role and the difference your involvement made.
Thank you for that question. I've worked on many projects over the last 6 years. I mean, the first one that was handed to me was as an architect, being the liaison with the Department of Transportation on the reconstruction of Ravensdale Bridge. And I worked very hard to make sure that the details of the bridge worked with the village, had the state use the same street lamps that we use in our downtown, and ensured that we had a positive pedestrian and bicycle connection to the South County Trail. on the other side. And in fact, the next part of that project is actually to connect the bridge back to the bike lanes on Farragut Avenue with a revisioning of the Ravensdale Road. So I also worked with the county to implement improvements to the transportation on Farragut Avenue um, so that everyone could really enjoy it with bike lanes and restriping. Two other quick ones. Worked with Trustee Lopez to solve some of the insane traffic problems that we were having down on James Street. And finally, I'm working now with the Department of Transportation to revision the future of Broadway from Yonkers all the way up to Sleepy Hollow.
Thank you. Tom, same
Well,
question.
Sorry?
I said same question.
Okay. Well, I think it's important to note that, both of us as village trustees do end up, crossing over and working with each other on many of the projects that are worked on in this village and affect the village. Over the years, I came onto the board while it was a work in progress for James Street, along with the Ravensdale Bridge. Those are both works in progress that were way beyond the opportunity for me to dig right in and get involved, other than just giving my opinion, which I felt was very valuable at certain times. One of the projects that I was tasked with by our mayor was working with the Conservation Commission and our local landscapers on creating an amendment to the laws regarding gas-powered leaf blowers. And I felt like that's one of my strengths, where I brought people into a room with very differing opinions on the environment and how our landscapers needed to do business. And I brought them into the room, sat down, listened to both sides of the position, and we came to a really, I think, a very good conclusion, where we adopted a law banning gas-powered leaf blowers at certain times through the year. And I have to tell you, this took a very long time, and it wasn't an easy process because both sides were very passionate. But I feel like through my experience in my life, I was the person that brought this to a happy resolve, and it seems to be all working today. And I'm very proud of that because I feel like both sides were happy in that experience, and both sides were satisfied with the result.
Thank you, Tom. Tom, you'll take this next question first. A number of questions were submitted about the school bond, but school bond issues are not within the purview of the mayor and the Board of Trustees. Please discuss how the Board of Trustees is a separate entity from the Board of Education and what the business of the village entails.
Well, I mean, am I still on? Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry about that. Obviously, we are a separate entity, and there's a reason for that. New York State has governed that the village government will be separate from the school government, except in certain circumstances in the larger cities where the mayor does have mayoral control over that. And it's my position, as even a trustee or a future mayor, that I think, we have to respect those boundaries between the village and the school board. Are there times where we can assist the schools with something, maybe getting information out to the community? Yes, and that's something that I know my partners on the school board have been asking. They've been asking the village to assist in certain areas. The last thing I would want to do ever is to step on the toes of another elected body within our village, including our superintendent, who I think is doing an amazing job. He's a great advocate for our children, and he's someone who I'd like to see throughout my children's experience here in the schools. And so the last thing I would want to do is damage the relationship between the village and the school board. So I will respect the boundaries that exist between the school and the village, and I do firmly believe in them, and will maintain that belief throughout my candidacy and terms.
Thank you. Morgan.
Yes, Rachel, you're absolutely right. We're completely separate governments. I like to joke that the school is like the Vatican City within the city of Rome, and having an elected official from the village comment on anything that's going on in the school would be effectively like the mayor of Rome telling the Pope what to do. So we're completely separate entities. We help them with obviously with all the emergency services, and make sure that the roads are functioning up to and around the schools. I think there's some confusion from, some parents that don't understand this, and I'm not really sure why, but it may have something to do with some new parents having moved to the village from the city of New York, where the mayor does actually control the school budget and the school board, but that's not the way here. So, um, like Tom, I'm absolutely committed uh, to clear, transparent communication with the superintendent and the school board. That happens now, honestly, but I would also be open to, pushing for an annual meeting between the two boards that was public, so that people could weigh in and everyone could be heard.
Thank you, Morgan. Morgan, this next question is for you, and this is the last of the Board of Education related questions. Have there been ways the village board and Board of Education have worked together to maximize resources and increase efficiency to benefit the bottom line for residents of Hastings? If so, how do you envision continuing or expanding that partnership if elected mayor?
Well, that's interesting. So, I mean, first off, the school board and the village board have collaborated on projects that I believe, have helped the students and have helped the school. I mean, for starters, the village gave Reynolds Field to the school back in the 1940s. That's one very simple way, but I think we're talking about more modern experiences. We partnered with the school on putting solar panels up on the roof of the school. We have the mayor has honestly been actively working with the students to get them funded to promote clean energy in the community. Um, I am personally very committed to building our tax base and helping the local downtown businesses, so that will take some of the pressure off the individual parents who, well, all of us actually, all taxpayers that are bearing the burden of the taxes, the largest portion of which is going to the school. Roughly 70% of our taxes go to the school. So I am very committed as a trustee and as a candidate for mayor to helping build the commercial tax base for the village, both in the downtown and on the waterfront.
Thank you. Tom.
Like I said before, I'd first want to sit down with Dr. McCursey and members of the school board just to see what the parameters need to be so they don't feel threatened by the presence of the village. And I think that is very important. And everything Morgan has said, the partnership with Reynolds Field and other items. And one of the things that is something that is championed by our current mayor is what the agreement she did with Bloomberg Enterprises, and she was able to get grant money for our students who were able to go out and work in areas around our village to help the climate. My son participated last year with one of his friends who had secured a grant in planting trees that were better at drinking water, for lack of better words for myself, soaking up water in an area where it's known as an area that's prone to flooding and has a very high water table. So they planted several trees all through that area that might help alleviate some of the stress of the homeowners in that entire neighborhood. So I think it's important that we maintain the relationship with the school. I think there are ways that we should sit down and research how the village can help. But similar to the last answer, I think we also just need to be very, very careful on how we approach that relationship. I mean, Morgan's idea about having a once-a-year meeting between the two, I think would be a great idea. And it's something that we should definitely research for the future. And I'll do that if I'm elected as your mayor as well.
Moving on. Senior residents provide an invaluable service to the community as active volunteers, yet with increasing taxes, seniors have concerns about the affordability of living here. Can something be done to make living in Hastings more affordable for this population? Tom, you have the question first.
I think it can. I think it can when the village encourages commercial construction and which will help improve our tax base. And that's why I strongly support the Electric Owl project down at the Graham School. Senior housing is something that's very passionate for me as a person who grew up in this community and who still has a mother-in-law that's living in the community. And I have to constantly think about where do I see her in the next couple of years now that she's home alone, unfortunately. So that's something that's very passionate to me. I've been working behind the scenes with members of the St. Matthew's Church, on a project that's hopefully going to happen at the St. Matthew's School, where all I've been pushing behind the scenes on that is senior affordable housing. And it seems to have resonated with the developers who are showing interest in purchasing the school, because most of the proposals right now that they're seeing are involving senior affordable housing. This would be just a home run for the village, home run for our seniors, because I think it's very important. If they want to stay in place here in this village, which I think almost all of them do, they can. My mother left this village because she couldn't afford it. And I wished my mother was here until the day she died, to see my grandchildren more often than where she grew up in South Georgia. So I think it's something that I will place a heavy focus. I already do. I've advocated for universal design when we've talked to developers, which is good for seniors who want to house in place. And I think it's important for the village to focus on that, because a large portion of the village and a percentage of the village are seniors.
Thank you. Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, the whole board has always advocated for senior housing, and I'm with Trustee Drake on this one 100%. We're all very excited about what's potentially happening at St. Matt's, and I'm especially gratified that they're probably going to be able to achieve what they're achieving without any variances at all, which means that the zoning that we've been crafting over the last few years is working. And I'm proud to say that, you know, one of the things that I did do in the downtown was work to allow smaller apartment units. Before, they were limited to a minimum of 1,500 square feet, which is actually, I mean, it's a nice apartment, but it's a bit larger than everyone needs, especially people that are, you know, really looking to downsize and want a foothold in the village, but, you know, don't need that much space. I also know that from talking to the senior council that, you know, they're very interested in hearing about other ways to reduce the tax burden. You know, we have created a senior citizen tax exemption, and I'm happy to push and look at that further. But that, you know, that we are only able to discount it for the village taxes. Finally, also we're in the process of modifying our accessory dwelling unit laws to make it easier for people to age in place and convert part of their house or a small accessory structure to an accessory dwelling unit.
Thank you. Morgan, you'll take this next question first. Compared to surrounding municipalities, the Hastings commercial tax base is limited and budget costs fall heavily on property owners. What concrete steps would you take to encourage business growth in our community to support both the village and school budgets?
There's sort of two big parts of to the answer. The first is we have a number of large parcels left. One is the Graham School, and as Tom pointed out, that one is currently is under contract with the Electric Owl Studio, and then the other is the waterfront. I'm absolutely committed to opening up the waterfront, and I do think the southern 14 acres, they're clean, they're ready to go. So we just need to work on helping them with access to the property. In terms of the downtown, though, I really want to make sure that whatever we allow commercially outside of the downtown, it doesn't undermine the businesses in the downtown. And I think we need to do more to attract visitors to Hastings. You know, some of the ways I was talking about earlier with commitment to the parks, I think getting a, you know, first-class skate park into the village, getting more pickleball courts. I know those are small things, but I think getting people excited about the amenities in the village, and most importantly, I think getting Hastings on the map as an art destination for people that are exploring, you know, the Dia and Storm King further up the river would be a way of getting people to stop and visit the village and spend more money in the downtown stores, and then that will attract more commercial development.
Thank you. Tom?
I agree with Morgan, and I think Hastings we're moving in the right direction, especially with the Electric Owl project. But I think one of the things that I've campaigned on is as a village, we need to own our side of the house. We need to own and have responsibility for the upkeep of our downtown area, which I think affects the person's experience when they come to our village. They hear about a quaint, you know, small Rivertowns village, And I think it's up to us to make sure we are stewards of how the downtown looks when they come to our village. And we owe that to our business owners because they're doing everything they can to survive. And we owe that to our residents, and we owe that to our visitors that are coming here. Similarly to what Morgan has said about the waterfront, I will strongly encourage a mixed-use waterfront that'll hopefully involve more commercial development instead of housing, because we all know that's what will help our village, and that's what will help hopefully reduce the tax burden on all of us. Morgan's paying taxes, and so am I, and we both feel it every several months when we have to pay our bills. While Hastings is one of the smaller tax burdens that we all have to endure, it still is something that I think about constantly and is always on the forefront of my mind, that I want to try my best to keep flat no matter what, and hopefully even reduce it and not do anything that will make it increase at all for this village.
The next question is, I believe, related, and Tom will start first. What can be done to improve the overall appearance of the village and the downtown, including the business area, the commuter parking lots, village hall, which desperately needs painting?
I met right in the beginning of my campaign. I was able to meet with about a dozen business owners in the village, and I heard a lot from those business owners. And I felt like, at first I hadn't had a lot of things on my radar as a campaign. And one of the things I've heard about is just the confusion with parking in our village and how just it's difficult. They've lost regular customers that used to always come to the village, stop in, get something, and then leave. And the confusion between the app and just the pay stations has led to their regular customers, years-long customers, not coming back. And I feel like we need to take a look at that. The village of Ardsley recently made free parking in their downtown. The village of Irvington has been free in the downtown as long as I can remember, even as a child who could drive. And I think that's something that we need to strongly consider, and that's something that I'll advocate because I think that'll make it easier on everyone. That'll reduce the confusion, and hopefully that'll bring more people. But I think we need to have a qualitative and a quantitative analysis as well. After 1 year, we should sit down and say, all right, how is the tax revenue coming in from these businesses? Have they really benefited from this? We'll sit down and have a partnership with the business owners. We'll sit at the table and say, is this helping you? Because if it is, then we'll continue. And if we see the product of our incentives, then we will continue as a village as well. And I think that's my number one priority, including just fixing everything in downtown and fixing it up and making it a priority.
Thank you. Morgan.
I mean, I think when people ask that question, they're honestly asking first, like, what happened to the trees downtown? And I just want to say, the sidewalks were in very bad shape. The village has moved forward on restoring the sidewalks down there. And one of the big casualties, unfortunately, was the older shade trees that were down there. Um, they weren't specimen trees, but they were nice, big, leafy trees. And so, but they were root bound and in very tight pits, and the roots were growing into the stores. So the store owners did actually, many of them asked us what we could do about it. We've tried to save which ones we can, but the trees were a casualty of that effort. And we've replanted them. Some did not make it. We will replant them again. They need care. They need watering. But it takes about 3 years for them to flourish, and I think they will flourish. The village is also committed to restoring the sidewalks on Main Street. And then in terms of the parking lot down on the waterfront, I think that's actually a key asset for the village in negotiating with the owners on the waterfront. And I think that there's going to be a great opportunity to use it to weave our downtown back across the tracks onto the waterfront itself.
Thank you. Staying with the waterfront, Morgan, this will be your question first. What will you do to speed progress on the remediation of the waterfront and the river so that development can finally happen?
I mean, I know that it seems like it's moving slowly, but actually, BP Arco has been very engaged with the village. We meet with them quite regularly. They have a plan for cleaning it up. So to be clear, and I did write a letter about this to the village and explain who owns what, but the main parcel across from the train station is the one that's owned by BP Arco. It's the one that's still poisoned with PCBs. The area to the south of it is green. It's cleaned up. It can be redeveloped. We just can't access it right now. The BP Arco site, they have a plan. They've submitted it to the DEC. It's about, I don't know, 60% complete, and it's in front of the EPA now, who needs to review it um, for the only for one actual component, which is that when we clean it up, we're going to actually transport the PCBs off-site elsewhere. And because of that, the EPA has jurisdiction over that one component. Other than that, the DEC is, on the whole, pretty happy with the cleanup plan. And, BP has given us $3 million to restore McEachran Park to the north, and they're also working on a pilot study to clean up the PCBs in Canally Cove right now. So I'm actually quite comfortable with their progress, and I think that they are committed to moving this along quickly.
Thank you. Tom?
Yes, I don't want to repeat everything that Morgan said, but I've lived here 42 of my 52 years, and I've really been excited, hopefully, about something happening in my lifetime here in the village to our waterfront, or even just in my life. When we met with engineers and we're getting opinions about this most recent advancement that Morgan is talking about, one of them said, we asked just a question, what do you think about the timeline here? And they said 7 to 8 years. And I know how government works. If it's years, that add 3 to 6 more years. If it's months, always add 3 to 6 more months to something. So I'm excited with the prospect of maybe even within 10 years, we start talking about real plans. But I do understand that we have to be concerned about zoning and planning for this area. And those are things maybe in the lifetime of one of our mayorships that we will have to focus on, and things that we're going to have to start planning for, like zoning, the area for mixed commercial use, and working on planning to make sure we're getting what we want. We also have to listen to the concerns of our citizens. They've convened boards and panels. They've attempted to zone in the past where it's failed. And I think that these are things that hopefully in the short term, 3 to 4 years, we'll start considering that also, one of us, or even if we're both on the board at that point, we'll be considering setting up these plans, get the plans in place, and let's get the ball rolling so we're ready to go when they give us the green light.
Thank you.
Rachel, could I just use a rebuttal to add some detail here?
Absolutely. 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. I was a member of the Waterfront Rezoning Committee, so I just want to say, Tom, that we didn't try and fail. We put together a plan for rezoning the waterfront that took a lot of input from the community, and but the key thing is that we wanted the owners of the property to pay for the rezoning. We may need to rethink that a little bit moving forward, but I think that the community is actually fairly aligned on how they want to rezone it. We want to preserve views. We want parkland along the waterfront, and we want a living shoreline.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Next question, we'll start with Tom. The Rowley's Bridge Trail has been ignored by the village for more than 15 years. What will you do to restore this area to public use and enjoyment?
Well, it's my understanding that there is a bit of a division about Rowley's Bridge. Apparently, we recently discovered that there is a property that takes up part of Rowley's Bridge, or what we thought was village property in Rowley's Bridge. And I think, like I've said, I think I'm the person that can sit down with sides and discuss what would be best for the future for the property owner who's in that area, and the village. And I think we can come to a happy median on how to restore that area and get it back to the way it was, that I remember being able to walk down just in the last 20 years. And I think it's a benefit to this village to have that, and have an unfiltered view of the Hudson River as you walk along going south towards Yonkers. And it's something that I would prioritize. And I feel like the way I've collaborated throughout my entire career with people, maybe there is difficult situations or conversations that we have to have, but I'm willing to sit down and have them. I'm not willing to just ignore it and put up a wall and just not have the discussion anymore and try to figure out a way around it. I will take it head on. I will sit down. I will have discussions with the people that we need to have discussions about, and I will do what's best for the village in advocating during that time.
Thank you. Morgan.
I mean, I'm committed 100% to restoring the legacy of Fred and Louise Hubbard. I agree that we have not put enough effort into Rallies Bridge Trail, and unfortunately, right now we do have a property issue. A resident of the village purchased a small parcel which is not buildable right in the middle of the trail, and I agree with Tom. I think there was perhaps some confusion in the administration, whether it was belonged to the village or not. There's a complicated map of parcels down there, but this person purchased it and they have effectively blocked access to the trail rather than working with the village. This person is Brian Allen, and he's the same person that has created a PAC that is funding signs, these brown signs around the village that support Tom. So, I mean, Tom, I certainly hope that you can talk to him, but I think that what he's doing is cynical and is not in the spirit of what the village believes in terms of working together to solve problems.
Thank you. I'm going to move to the next question. Do you think Hastings is a community, this goes to Morgan, excuse me. Do you think Hastings is a community that values economic diversity and inclusion? And if so, what can you do as mayor to promote these values?
I think Hastings absolutely does aspire to the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we can always do better. But right now, for example, we're celebrating Pride Month. The flags are up all over the village for the entire month of June. We have a very diverse police force and very diverse team working for the village. We've all, as trustees, been deeply involved in the hiring of the members of the police force, and are committed to, first and foremost, making sure we get the best and the brightest. But very gratified that there's so many wonderful people with so many different backgrounds joining the village, who want to join the village. And but I think we need to do more. We need to make the village more affordable. We need to provide more alternative housing types so more people of different backgrounds actually have an opportunity to live here. And finally, well, actually, that's it. All right.
Thank you. Tom.
I think the village is very inclusive. We've done a lot of work to be accepting and inclusive of everyone that comes to this village. I've reached out to the Rainbow families and met with the Rainbow families recently to see what I can do to help, their cause and their initiative, and shared stories of personal nature with them relating to my own family. And I've met with members from Peacock and other groups in the village who are marginalized groups who aren't always sure that their voices are being heard. And I feel like it's very important. I feel like the mayor has done a lot of work. She did appoint the LGBTQ plus liaison to the board, who I think is doing a great job, and I have a good relationship with him, and we've talked from time to time about issues. I think we can always do better, and tomorrow night we have Friday Night Pride right on, or 2 nights from now is Friday Night Pride right in our downtown. We're shutting down the entire village to celebrate Pride Month. And I think you're not going to see that in every community. And that's what makes this community so special. Unfortunately, I can't be there that night because of my son's birthday. We're taking him out to the city with his friends that night. I'm not going to be there, unfortunately. But I think we are already taking great steps to champion inclusiveness and diversity in this village. Like Morgan said about our police department, we've taken great steps to diversify the police department in so many different ways. And I think we lead in Westchester County in diversity.
Thank you. Tom, we'll start with you for this next one. There are plans for a cannabis dispensary in Hastings across the street from the community center where children gather, yet the community has a stake in reducing and preventing youth drug and alcohol use. How do you see the office of the mayor supporting this work?
Well, I opposed Hastings allowing a dispensary in our village. I voted on it and I spoke out against it. And like you said, there's the possibility of a cannabis store going in right across from our community center, next to the dance studio where my son takes dance, hip hop dance lessons every Friday afternoon when he gets off the bus from Hillside School, next to an ambulance building. What's more disturbing is I remember when we were going through this process years ago, I was told that there's no way zoning would allow for there to be a dispensary in our downtown area. The closest it could get would be Sawmill River Road. And obviously that wasn't true. And I didn't change my vote on that because I just didn't believe it. And now here we are. It's diagonal from a church. But once the village, put opposition into the New York State Office of Cannabis Management, they created a new policy. Once we submitted our opposition because of the church being in place, they created a new policy that said that it only matters at the time of the application of the applicant, not now. It doesn't apply now, which is really unfortunate. And I think this is not something I want to normalize for my children, especially across the street from a place where children gather every day after school. They stand out front, and now we will have them looking at this, and it becomes very normal for them. And I'm not against I was totally in favor of legalization of marijuana and cannabis. I am against having a shop in our downtown.
Thank you. Morgan.
I disagree 100%. I voted for the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Acts. I voted not to opt out of it. Our downtown is a postage stamp. If you blinked, you drive through it and not even see it. I voted for it mainly because it's going to provide significant potential economic benefits to the village, both job creation, providing more taxes, and it'll get more foot traffic to the downtown stores. There's a church on almost every block in the downtown, and the church that Tom's talking about was actually turned into a church since the applicant, like basically in the last 2 months, since the applicant put in his application over a year ago. There's liquor stores in the downtown. A liquor store would be allowed by right across from the community center, and it has fewer requirements about how the windows have to be treated. You can see right into a liquor store. You can see the products. You can see, I don't know, posters of girls in bikinis. The cannabis stores will have completely frosted windows. They have security. Kids can't even go inside of them, and kids can go inside of a liquor store. So I think this is, I'm sorry, I understand it's painful for people, but I just don't think this is a hill to die on.
Thank you.
Rachel, may I use a 30-second rebuttal?
Yes. Go ahead.
At the time that this was coming up, the problem I saw was New York State was rushing us into a decision when they didn't even have all their policies established. I've been reminded that legislating based on no policy in place is bad legislation. I tried to drive that point home during our meetings in public, and I felt like here we are rushing into a decision that we had to make when we could have paused and we could have waited. We could have seen how this affected other municipalities, especially since I already knew the Rivertowns around us were also not going to vote for it.
Thank you.
Rachel, I have one. I'd like to use my last one.
That would be your second and last rebuttal.
Understood. I don't really, Tom, I remember that you said that, and I appreciate that and respect it. But I will say that the regulations really haven't changed that much. I mean, they have been effectively the same. There's a small difference about whether the community center is a dedicated center for youth only, and whether a church is only being used for religious purposes. But I mean, honestly, I don't know who told you that it couldn't go in the downtown, but if you remember my vote, I voted to put it in the downtown because I wanted the foot traffic to support other stores.
Thank you, Morgan.
Welcome.
Okay. Next question, we'll begin with Morgan. Hastings lags behind some of its neighbors in collection and environmentally appropriate disposal of organic waste. What would you do to help Hastings catch up? For example, by providing collection of organic waste at the farmers market and the Hastings schools.
Well, I mean, we're already working with the county on a larger collection project right now. I'm not even sure it's really true that we're lagging behind. I mean, we have uh, what started out as a student project to collect compost has actually turned into a business in its own right. It's quite amazing. We collect compost downtown, and we're also working now with the county on a countywide study of compost pickup solutions that might be even more efficient. I think we're actually leading the charge on this. So I don't know uh, where that information is coming from. Yeah, and the company is called the Hudson Compost Service, and it's wonderful. You see these little bins that go outside with the orange plastic tops. So I think that Hastings is doing a great job on this. Of course, we can always do better, but
Thank you. Tom.
I'm with Morgan on that also. We have really advanced that, I think, over the last several years. And you know, you drive around and you do see buckets outside people's houses waiting for pickup throughout the week. And I think it's somewhere we're going. We championed when I was a kid, when recycling became very popular. We were the leading recyclers in Westchester County for a very long time. And I remember that being a very important designation for the village then. And I think I mean, I agree with Morgan. I would like to see those statistics myself and see where that's coming from, just to give a better opinion on that. But I can't see how that's not happening. Maybe we can improve the collection site on the village's side and make it a little more user friendly, or in a place that it's easier to get to for residents, and you know, maybe not as difficult for people to get to and deposit their waste. But I think we're already doing a great job, and we're partnering with other government entities. And I think we're going to just keep going the way we're going, and we're going to get there, and we're going to be champions of this as well.
Thank you. Tom, this is the last question. You get to go first. How do you view the role and importance of the View Preservation District in future planning and development?
Well, our title, you know, I've been saying Hastings all night, but we are Hastings-on-Hudson, and our fire department patch has the Palisades on the fire department patch, and there's in so many other areas of this village where we identify with the Palisades and the Hudson River. I remember years ago there was a development that occurred on Main Street that, from the angle that I approached the intersection at Five Corners, that development took away a portion of my view, and I just felt let down. I felt sad because I don't want to lose our identification as a river town. And all of a sudden now we don't have views of the river, and we're going to small corridors. And that's just not my intention. I think we really need to think about that, especially when we start talking about the waterfront. I met with a business owner down near the waterfront just recently, and what they had told me, a lot of their business relies on the view of the Hudson River. And then if we all of a sudden put tall buildings down there, we could effectively now ruin their business. So I think these are things that we have to think about. We have to think about the businesses that rely on the proximity to the waterfront. And I think we have to think about our village as Hastings-on-Hudson, and not take away the Hudson part when you can't really see the Hudson anymore when you're driving around this village, or even the Palisades. I think it's paramount. It's in our title, it's in our history, it's in our foundation. We have this beautiful geological feature right there, and we are so lucky to be able to enjoy it every day. And I'm not really interested in having too much of a restriction on that.
Thank you. Morgan.
I am, like Tom, absolutely committed to preserving as many views as possible of the river. And I agree. That is why we're here. That's what is the most striking thing that you see when you first come into the village. That being said, the view preservation law is very broad right now, and it comes up for challenge in almost every zoning hearing that's in that district. So, you know, all I've been advocating for is more community involvement in really trying to get to the bottom of what it is that people mean. I mean, if you're living in your house, does that mean every view from every window, including the bathroom, is a preserved view? Because that then restricts the ability of your neighbor to improve their property, and that's really where we're ending up with a lot of the conflicts. I also want to preserve as many of the views down on the waterfront, and I think that we can be smart about keeping the buildings away, like where there are bluffs. I am struggling to think of which particular business down there is worried right now about losing their view, because the only one I can really think of is Hastings-on-Hudson, and we're definitely not building anywhere near them. So, I think we just need more community involvement in the question, and I'm absolutely committed to preserving the views of the Hudson River and the Palisades.
Thank you. Gentlemen, we've reached our closing statements. Each of you get a minute and a half to make a closing statement. And Morgan, because you went second in the opening, you go first now.
Thank you. To say that I'm deeply disturbed by what's happening in Washington, D.C. is an understatement. National politics has become a three-ring circus, but I don't believe local politics has to be. Strong leadership that's collaborative, practical, and open is what distinguishes us as a local government. As an architect and a leader, I'm not interested in chaos and confusion. I seek to create stability and harmony. I moved to Hastings because I love it. Its charm, its welcoming spirit, and I want to keep that, not lose it. But there are problems in our village that I want to address. There are forces that are confronting Hastings that I want to meet head on, like climate change, infrastructure that's not up to the task, the cost of living, and the attack on our values. I want to control these challenges now before they control us. I think we should expect our mayor to take strong, clear positions on our behalf. To me, this means listening, doing my homework, seeking expertise, and bringing what I learned back to you so that we can continue the conversation. As your mayor, I will make this my priority and fight for Hastings. If our visions align, please vote for me on June 24th. Please tell a neighbor. Every vote and every conversation counts. And if you'd be willing to contribute to my campaign, I'd really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Tom.
You know, I know that you're not going to vote for me just because I grew up in this village, and maybe some of you will who have known me for that long. But you know, and I don't expect that to be the record that I stand on. I stand on my record of service to government, service to people. I've spent my entire working life to serve others in every aspect of what I've done, and it's very clear. You can see it on my website. It's very clear the experience that I have in life and in government. I feel like over time, Morgan's correct. Washington, D.C. is clouding things up right now, and I feel like it's important for the mayor to focus on the village. I think this is a village that strives, even in it prides itself on democracy, and that's what makes our Democrats so great in this village. We are seeing adversity coming down upon us, and we are still gathering in public spaces in our village, and we are still fighting against the diversity and against the wall that's coming at us from Washington, D.C., and we're resisting, and we're not letting it affect us. We're moving on, and we're actually becoming stronger as Democrats. And I think that's something that we've kind of lost over the years, and I think it's very important that we get it back. And we get back Washington, of course, but we get back to being Democrats, and we get back to being good Democrats in this village and supporting each other, inclusivity, and in other areas that are so important as Democrats, and racial equity, and so much more. And I hope you go to my website, tomdrakeforhastings.com, and support me in any way you can.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank both candidates for a wonderful forum and their civility responding to the questions. I'd like to remind all the participants that the election is Tuesday, June 24th, and early voting will begin Saturday, June 14th through Sunday, June 22nd. There are several sites. You can check the county website or the County Board of Elections website. One of the sites for early voting is the Hastings Library. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.